Hi, welcome to my channel. This is my third show. I'm still figuring all this stuff out, having a fun time doing this. I'm going to be doing some coaching, um, and just I guess for legal reasons, just want to say the whole. Uh, I'm not. This doesn't fix anything. I'm not trying to cure anything. If you need help, please see a medical professional. I'm not a medical professional. I'm a coach. I'm not a therapist or psychologist of any time. All right. So now that we got that kind of out of the way, I'm here with a Relational Trauma Coach. And you have some questions or some thoughts or some stuff we can kind of look at today. Um,
Yeah. So before Matt, actually, I was talking to you about, um, a couple a woman that I've been working with and how her relationship with her husband kind of interfered with my coaching and um, so what I mean, there are a couple of things that I wanted to bring up regarding this. So first things first is that this experience with her has made me think, more deeply about whether or not I actually want to work with married clients. Because I feel like, at least from my perspective, the work that I do. So, yes, I'm a relational trauma coach, but I really focus most on the relationship to self. I help heal insecure attachment and codependency for highly sensitives. But I really focus in doing that on building the relationship with self. And what happened with this particular client, who's actually doing really, really well right now, and kind of things have turned around, which is amazing. But we kept coming up against, walls, because instead of focusing on the work that we needed to be focusing on, we were focusing on her relationship, on the fights, on the communication. And, I was able to help her through those things, but sort of at the expense of the work that she needed to be doing on herself. And so, a couple of things come up for me. Here, first off, like, I told myself before I started doing this work, that in order for me to pursue this, I needed to be able to remove my attachment to the outcome and be just okay with, helping the way that I can help. And if my client doesn't take my suggestions, doesn't do the work, or, it doesn't, like, end up, the result or success doesn't end up the way that I would like it to, that I need to be okay with that, because that helped me really see, am I doing this because I was whether I was doing this because I was conditioned to want to help others, or whether I was doing it because it's really, my truth, like my purpose work. Because I was conditioned to want to help other people, to want to, in terms of like codependent survival strategies. And so in order to really make sure that I wasn't, trying to help others at the expense of looking at myself, you know what I mean? Like, to kind of fix something inside me, which I really feel very strongly I'm not doing. that I need to be okay with the outcome. And I am, but I'm also wondering, is this work that I'm doing more fit for people who are not married, that they will have a more success rate? But I'm also questioning, am I limiting myself, or am I creating like too stringent of boundaries in order to protect myself, from the same thing happening again? Is this making sense at all?
Yeah, yeah, totally making sense. Okay, so that's kind of the question you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at like whether or not, I guess my boundaries in terms of who I want to work with. I mean, I know we all have a particular ideal client, a particular person that we want to work with. And for me, at the beginning, I actually said, even before I started working with this client, I said that my ideal client is not going to be married. But I ended up working with this married person anyway, because I related to her very deeply. She was highly sensitive, complex PTSD. Like I could relate very heavily to her experience, and I wanted to help her. But I have seen, in my mind, I feel like she could have gotten farther, and if she had been able, or like if she were not in that relationship, or if she had left the relationship. But it's not really my place to tell her, you need to leave this relationship. It's my place to help her get to the goal that she wants to get, regardless of her circumstances. And I actually have another client who I'm working with right now where something similar. She's not married, but she's in a relationship and she wants to stay in this relationship. And I see how this relationship is harming her and harming her ability to heal. And so again, I feel like I'm placed in this position where, like I want to tell her, just leave this person, but I don't feel like that's my responsibility, and I don't feel like that's what she wants either. So am I doing a disservice to her by helping her, communicate with this person who is making her wait indefinitely for him to be ready, when I know that that's just not healthy for her? So maybe there's a little bit of ego in there as well. It's like, I know that this isn't what's right for her. Am I doing myself a disservice as a coach by putting these, like conditions on who I'm working with? And, instead of just kind of going with the flow and trying to help them where I can, and, letting them realize for themselves when they're ready, whether or not this relationship is good or not for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Can I share some of my thoughts?
Oh, yes, please do.
So I do work with people. I work with a lot of people in relationships. And kind of one of the things that I generally tell people pretty early on is, I'm not really sure where any of this is going to go. And I often work with people who are kind of on the FA spectrum. So people that are both avoidant and anxious. And I often see this kind of like binary desire to either get out of the relationship or like go into the relationship, and in like kind of no middle ground. And one of the things I'll kind of say, and one of the things I've noticed, is that if I help someone understand the tools to do a lot better in the relationship they're in, so they start giving like 200%. After a while, often they get really, really sick of the fact that the other person isn't actually putting in their effort. And generally that's the way that I play it, because most people I've seen don't really know if they want to go in or out. So I see the work as kind of like, hey, we're going to work on you becoming more secure, We're going to work on you figuring out what these tools are. And then after a while, the cycle is going to go around enough times that you're probably just going to be okay leaving this other person. Or you're going to do the work and you're going to see that by doing the work, the other person is going to respond and things are actually going to get better. So, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, and that is definitely like that has definitely happened with me before, because I was working with somebody who was financially independent, and in the married couple, like, she is not financially independent, so even if she wanted to leave, she couldn't, you know. So I feel like maybe that is why that one stuck out for me more. This person who I'm working with now, who I was talking about, she is financially independent and she could leave if she want to. But yeah, maybe I'm just being impatient, you know, and not like waiting for that to happen on its own, you know, wanting to fix right now, you know, and not waiting for that to happen on its own. So yeah, I can completely see where you know, I'm kind of like not allowing the process. Well, it's not that I'm not allowing the process. I am allowing the process to happen. But on the inside,
emotionally, it's hard.
Yes, it is. Yeah, emotionally, it's hard because, yes, exactly. Emotionally, it's hard because I just want her to be like, you know, look, I've read this guy's letters, you know, I've read what he said, and he's basically saying he doesn't know when he's going to be ready, or if he's going to be ready, or how long it's going to take. And for you to just sit there waiting, you know, forever, or like, how, you know, I mean, it's just like, focus. Let's just focus on you, and, you know, walk away from this for now. And if when he's ready to come around, you're in the right place and it works, then it works, you know? So instead of like continuing to focus all of our sessions on how do I respond to him, what do I do? You know? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess the kind of question comes up for me, or I wonder, what work do you value more in terms of like, so you have this program, and what I'm hearing from you is you have this program and you kind of have goals with this program. You want to move this person is to move from here to here. And it sounds like what is coming up for some of these people is they actually have this other goal where they need to move from here to here. And to me, it seems like you're devaluing the second goal over the other goal. But for the client, it's very possible that this other goal is actually a lot more important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm valuing my goal for them over their own goal, because I think I know better, which is why I said I feel like there could be some ego in there. I, you know, because I've been there and I've seen, you know, like, I know they deserve better.
Yeah.
And for me, in order for me to really like, really get to the point where I could hold firm on my boundaries, where I, you know, felt confident in myself, where I felt better, like, and basically got through all of these things that they're currently struggling with, like, one of the major things I had to do was start surrounding myself with different people, you know, because if I was surrounding myself, at least at the beginning, you know, once you learn to validate yourself, then it's different, because you have more identity. But these people who I'm working with, they have zero identity, you know, yet they are a little bit on, you know, they're definitely in the complex trauma realm. They tend to lean anxious, but I would say, there is definitely complex trauma there, and probably some disorganization in the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they lean heavily anxious, which means that their identity, there's lots of self blame. There's lots of it's all my fault. What do I need to do to change? There's something wrong with me. I'm defective.
Mm-hmm.
Very much the same that I felt that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Instead of focusing on what is it that I actually want?
Mm-hmm.
What is this life that I want to create for myself? And that is the goal. That
Mm-hmm.
is the goal that I'm trying to help them accomplish is, in terms of security. In
Mm-hmm.
terms, I'm not I don't want to help them be okay with being in an abusive relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship where they're treated like garbage. Because to me, I feel like that's avoidance. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they're like just putting more armor on themselves so they can't be hurt in
Mm-hmm.
their relationship and still have their person, that defeats the purpose. And that's not actual security. That security is showing up for yourself, asking
Mm-hmm.
for what you want, taking the risk to actually create this life that you want for yourself, instead of, sourcing your identity and your self-worth from this other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 For sure. Um, I'd like to step back to the previous client you said who was not, I believe the words you used were they were not self-independent. Um,
Financially.
they were not financially independent.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my thoughts on that are that power structures are really unfortunate. And it's really challenging to be in a relationship where one is financially dependent upon another person. And I would kind of like kind of the stronger the power structure is, especially if there isn't security. In my mind, it can take a lot of work in terms of security to get to a place where one is able to kind of be strong within that power structure. But until one is strong within that power structure, it's going to be really challenging for them to kind of figure their way out of it, whatever that may be. And financial insecurity is challenging, and like there can be like a lot of challenges beyond that, because disabilities and other challenges that can make it like really difficult for someone to like earn money. And I guess the thing that kind of like you brought up how you don't want to kind of just support someone building up more armor and avoiding more within the relationship as a way to kind of like cope with the reality around them. And I agree with you on that. And I guess in my mind, that's kind of where I would put my boundary in terms of kind of like working with someone. If I felt like that was kind of the thing I was helping this person do, or the only thing we were really doing was kind of helping them put on that armor, I would say I would probably kind of back out and just be like, hey, I'd really like to work with you, but to my capabilities or to what I am seeing here, it seems like this is going in the wrong direction, and I don't think it's healthy for me to actually help you with that. That being said, I I'd say I've worked with people that are not financially dependent and people who are in situations where making money is going to be really challenging. And I often think there's actually a lot someone can even do in that situation to kind of make that situation better. And I've seen situations like that really change. And I've actually seen relationships that, if I was going to make a guess at the beginning, I'd say they were both going to go in their own ways. But after a good amount of work, um, it it seemed like they both were taking on roles within the relationship, and neither of them were the traditional roles for that you generally see people in. But it seemed like they're both picking up their own little pieces and creating the space to make it so that the relationship is slowly becoming more and more healthy, and like the fighting stopped. Um,
Yeah, things
so
are good with them right now. Things are good with them right now. She's going into her last week of of work. Like
mhm.
this next week is going to be our last week together, and she's definitely made like it seems like everything is starting to come together, and things are starting to change. The relationship with the husband seems a lot better. I think partly that's because a major point of contention in their relationship is his parents, and
Mhm.
they are moving.
Oh,
So
nice.
she like has this, you know, like she's excited about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
but
So,
uh, but yeah, I mean,
so can we kind of go back to this what I was
financial,
understanding
the
is that
power
here,
structure.
oh, so you brought up before that you don't want to be in a position where you're helping someone kind of become more avoidant.
Yeah,
And can you look at this example of where they're at right now? Do you believe that she's more avoidant?
no, I don't.
Okay.
But there definitely was a point where it was like, you know, she was doing like what she had to do to, I was trying to teach her to, you know, to speak up for herself.
Hmm.
And every time she did, it would create, um, like, a conflict between them. But now, so what I didn't realize then, and what she actually just recently told me, is that like I guess before she was kind of walking on eggshells when
Hmm.
she would speak up for herself. At least
Yeah.
that's what she says. And recently, so there was an incident where you know the husband wanted her. She actually, while we were working together, she started her own business.
Hmm.
And so she has been making a little bit of income, but regardless, he's really proud of her, and he wanted her to bring like her crafts, what she's been creating, to his parents' house. And she was kind of like, no, I really don't want to do that, you know, because they've never, I guess, been, or at least in the way she sees it, they've never been supportive of her.
Hmm.
And so she brought them over there, and they ended up, I guess, her husband's father and brother, I think, ended up saying that what she was doing is a waste of time.
Hmm.
And she was hurt by that, which, you know, is completely natural to be hurt by that. I mean, like, she doesn't
Yeah.
think it's a waste of time, but it's like, and anyway, when she was talking about it with her husband in the car, like, she wasn't dancing around the subject. She was just, like, very matter of fact about it. And um, in doing so, there wasn't a conflict. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if it's because of work he's been doing on his own or whatever, but like, she was able to do what I was trying to teach her in the first place. And, instead of having to never talk about his parents, because that's what she was doing, never talking about his parents so that there wouldn't be a fight, never bringing up her emotions so that there wouldn't be a fight, because he was taking her emotions personally.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, like, she was able to express herself about it, and it ended up working out. So gosh, I forget what you asked me now. So like, I see, yes, so I see now that no, I have not taught her. Like, now it's coming full circle,
Hmm.
and like, I can see that I'm not teaching, I haven't taught her avoidance, to put on an armor, but
Hmm.
there was a point when it did feel that way.
Okay. I can understand that. it can be scary when you're working with someone who is in in a position without a lot of power and worrying about kind of going in the wrong direction. But I'm also kind of wondering if maybe the right direction, like I'm kind of wondering if more clients like this would actually be really healthy for you.
Okay. Why do you say why do you think that? I'm just curious, out of curiosity. So
Well, so I mean, I don't know that I fully think it. I just kind of I want to play around with the idea just a little
okay.
bit. But I guess the thought kind of comes up because it seems like you went through a cycle where it seemed like you were kind of like going down at one point, and then you kind of like saw it go back up. And like I I guess in my mind, like there's always a possibility something could kind of go in the wrong direction, but it seems like you have a fair amount of experience coaching people. You've helped people through like a lot of these little cycles, and it from what we've kind of discussed, it sounds like you have some emotions that are telling you things go are maybe possibly going in a different direction than they actually are. And I'm wondering if you would get more reassurance by kind of going through these cycles like more and seeing that things actually turn out well.
Okay. So I was looking at it in a different way, because I mean, I obviously had the same question, which is why I brought this up,
Yeah.
about, am I, putting up like too stringent of boundaries, and being like self-protective, like a protector, coming
Yeah.
in, and would like actually having more clients like this actually help me work through something that I'm dealing with, and challenging myself.
Yeah.
That was kind of the the line of thinking that I was going in. So I wasn't really looking at it as in terms of validation. I was looking at it in terms of, but I mean, I can see how that validation, yeah, could help me work through the emotions. So I mean, yeah, I definitely see how that can be true for sure.
Yeah. Because I guess in my mind, there's kind of like two layers. There's the emotions that you're kind of feeling underneath there, and then there's your trust that what's going to happen is actually going to work out the right way.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the trust that it's going to work out the right way is actually the important part, because the
Okay.
emotions I think will kind of like work themselves out
Yeah.
if you figure that first part out.
The faith, having faith
Yeah.
that things are going to
Having
go.
faith that it's going to work out, and also possibly having resources if you kind of like go into a place where I don't know if this is kind of working out with this client. Like, I don't know if this is working out. Who can I talk to try to figure out what's going on so that I can have a better concept of what's going? So I guess I'll offer, like, if you ever want to talk about this for any particular client, kind of I'm happy to talk about it, happy to like kind of support you through it. I tend to feel very, I would say this is kind of my bread and butter of clients, that most of my clients are working through very kind of like similar situations, that I mostly work with like people that are in relationships or just ended relationships.
Hmm.
So maybe the in relationships is more the thing that you're looking at right now. Um, but
Yeah.
you're
When
seeing
for
it.
me, when I went through it, I wasn't in a relationship. So, like the steps that I took, which is what I'm guiding my clients
Yeah.
through, you know, um, I mean, I guess I have to like adapt it a little bit, for
Hmm.
people who are in relationship. And it's a lot easier for me not to do it, because I know that the way that I did it works,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Um
Yeah. Maybe adjusting your expectations and your priorities for people who are in relationships, knowing that the relationship is probably going to take precedent, and the other stuff that you're working on is probably going to be a little bit more secondary. But I guess in my mind, in terms of like human needs, if there's a relationship that's just like tearing someone apart at the down here, it's hard to have that base to work on this stuff up here. But if that relationship can become more solid, like this stuff can become a lot easier.
Yeah. I guess that's just something that I need to navigate for myself because, I have this very firm belief that if your relationship with yourself is not like, sturdy or solid, then your relationship with others um, is not going to be sturdy or solid either. That
Mm-hmm.
our relationships with other people are a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. And that's why I put precedence on the relationship with self and
Yeah.
not the relationship with others. There are tons of people out there, lots of people out there who could be great. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's not just one person for each of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I do kind of like have that, I guess, emotions around that when I see my clients like focusing so heavily on this one person and neglecting themselves,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Like, yeah. 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 And I guess I would, how would I frame that? I guess in my mind, like the relationship is almost this kind of like kind of meta problem where I'm looking like on the surface I can see there's two people here, and like this is my client, and this is their partner, or maybe this is their partner.
Yeah,
um
I see that.
and I think in some ways, like this person might really seem like this is what we're looking at, but really it is the relationship that this person has with partners, because generally it seems like people kind of fall into the same patterns with like the partner after partner after partner. And the way I'd kind of look at it is the relationship with oneself is kind of how they relate to the rest of reality, including those partners,
Yeah,
and being able
exactly.
to communicate kind of their needs to this partner, where this person almost becomes like a metaphor for whatever they're dealing with within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they're in this relationship, and I don't know if this relationship's going to work out. It may or it may not, but it's only very partially dependent upon this person. And if this person starts figuring out all the different patterns within themselves that they are doing, all the different ways they're trying to rescue this other person or demonize them or be rescued by them, like as much as it looks like it's about the partner, it's actually just all about them.
Yeah.
And if they figure those pieces out, then this person is then in a place where they're just going to keep repeating the same patterns, and that's also back to this person to like they're just repeating the same patterns. You're doing everything great right now, like, and then eventually like they're going to just pull back and be like, no, I'm done. And I've seen those cases, and it can be really heartbreaking with people on the FA spectrum, because I mean, not I guess not everyone watching will follow that, but often what happens is often FAs really attract each other. So there's this like push and pull dynamic, and when this person just like gets solid, then this person, the person if the anxious person within the relationship kind of gets solid, then the person who's more avoidant within the relationship will often get anxious.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of, I mean, that's a whole other dynamic to figure out, but eventually it's kind of like, okay, well, you need to step up, you need to like do your part, you need to like show me that you're willing to like really be in this relationship as well. Otherwise it's just, it's time to end it.
Yeah.
Another and I don't want to completely repeat myself, but other times like this person kind of works on themselves, and this person then has kind of more space and they can kind of work on themselves. And maybe it's not fair that the person on one side has to do a lot of the work first. But maybe it is. Maybe that does make sense. But also, like, one person has to choose to do the work. If there's something that's dysfunctional, if neither of them are willing to take that responsibility, it's not going to change.
Right.
Um, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit now, so I'm going to go back to
No,
uh,
I mean everything you're saying is making sense, you know, and I mean I tell my clients the same thing. I'm like, you know, you focus on you, and that's all you can do. If that person is meant to be in your life, they will rise to meet you, and if they're not, they won't. You know, but you
okay,
can't
yeah,
control that. I mean, that's what
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
say.
yeah, 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 yeah. That makes total sense. So I guess the question in my mind for you is, if your goal is to work with someone so that they can be focused on themselves,
Hmm.
um, how are they not, how are you not focusing on themselves when they're in a relationship?
Well, they are, but um, because they're not focusing on. I mean, and this isn't always true, but
Mhm.
a lot of the times what happens is, um, you know, they're focusing on themselves, but in terms of like, what do I need to fix to make this relationship work, instead of, you know, and I mean, my program is basically like, most of it revolves around self acceptance, you know, and integration.
Mm,
So taking these parts of ourselves that we've disconnected ourselves, that we've disconnected from, these parts of ourselves that we hate, that we blame ourselves for, that we think are awful, these coping mechanisms, and coming to accept them and then integrate them so that, you know, we heal. And in doing, you know, that work, it helps, like, once we can accept those parts, then they will take a step back, you
mhm,
know, because if we don't accept ourselves as we are, then we're just fighting against ourselves. We're creating resistance. You know, like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want to be this person. I don't want to blah, blah, blah. And that just creates a resistance and makes it impossible for us to change, because we're trying to change a part of ourselves that we hate. You know,
mhm,
whereas if we can come to accept this part, then once we accept it, we can actually change it.
mm,
So it's the other person that tends to um, slow that process of them being able to accept themselves, because the other person can't accept these parts of themselves.
mhm,
So if those parts are creating the tension and the conflict between the two people, which of course is what's going to happen, because that's why they're attracted to that person, because
mhm,
they've learned to hate these parts of themselves. And so
mhm,
they attract someone who, of course, is going to, you know, like, see these parts as a problem.
mhm,
And so it slows down that process and makes it very, very challenging for them to come to that self acceptance, that self compassion that they need to have for themselves in order to really move through this and allow themselves to feel everything and get to the other side. Um, so that's that's where the self work kind of comes up against a wall, is in terms of the integration and the self acceptance.
hmm. Okay. So if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, my interpretation is that for your work, generally you like to create a container, and like a pretty solid container of like, hey, there's nothing really for you to blame here. Everything we're looking at really is you, because you don't you're not in an unhealthy system. So we can like really look at kind of what's coming up and kind of like start creating self-love around those things coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand how that could be a lot more challenging when someone is in a relationship. I I would I would say for myself, a lot of the work I do is about learning how to communicate needs to a partner.
Well, that's part. I mean, that is definitely part of it. Down the road, like we get to that. That is one of the
Yeah.
modules.
Yeah.
Boundaries and communication. But like, if
So
you
can
can't
I,
accept yourself as you are and your own needs, then how can you actually set boundaries that you know what I mean? I mean, I'm dealing with people with like high levels of codependency who have had porous boundaries their
yeah,
entire life.
yeah.
Like they've never had boundaries. They don't even know what boundaries are most of the time.
Yeah.
So, like really creating that container of
Yeah.
self-love and self-acceptance, that there is someone out there who will accept you as you are, so that they can advocate for their needs and can communicate those things. Like the self-love is necessary, otherwise they're not going to follow through with their boundaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think I think of it maybe slightly differently. Because I for me I like to like, well, we're gonna talk about kind of like how you communicate something, and kind of where you set the boundaries. How do you feel about communicating those things? How do you feel about those boundaries? It's like we don't really create that safe container, because I just assume that generally there's not really that safe container when they're with someone else who's gonna like kind of keep going through those patterns with them. So by helping like the communication in the very beginning, and really talking about all the emotions around that, in my mind, that's where we're like kind of creating the container. I'm thinking of it very much as someone who is kind of like in a small, like really small metal container, that
Mm-hmm.
every like it's their body size, and we're like teaching them how to like just like keep punching out and like kicking out in all the different directions. And then instead of being able to say, hey, you're in this safe space, like how do you feel about these things, it's more like, how do you feel about like kicking out and kind of like pushing out in a way that goes against all these different coping mechanisms that you've learned.
Yeah.
And
So it's kind of like the reverse. Like you
yeah,
start with the so like my program has 6 modules, and
yeah,
the module that includes boundaries and communication is module 5.
yeah,
So
I would, yeah.
we start with the inner child, on learning the conditioning, deconditioning themselves, breaking down like everything that they, you know all of those stories that they tell
Yeah,
themselves, and rewriting new ones. So doing all of that when you're in a contentious relationship is very, very hard. So I can see doing it, reversing it, and starting with the boundaries and communication can help them get to um,
yeah,
the other place for yeah. I mean, and I
yeah,
can see how both methods work for sure. I can definitely
yeah,
see that. And
yeah,
that has happened when people are in a relationship where I have had to do that. I have had to, and actually with the women I was telling you about, who her and her husband, that actually was like the very first thing that we worked on. I took the boundaries of communication, and that was the very first thing that we did. You
yeah,
know, so like when we did it again, when we got back to that module, I was
yeah,
like, well, you already did this, because it was the first thing that we had to work on in
yeah,
order for
yeah,
you to be safe.
yeah,
But it was also really interesting to see like how those boundaries changed, and how those
hmm
non-negotiables changed, and her responsibilities for one, like now she is able to ask like her husband and her kids to take on some of that responsibility, so that it's not all piled on her. But
nice,
at the
nice,
beginning, like
yeah.
she really, like, that was really challenging.
So
So
what I'm hearing is, to me, it sounds like you're naturally doing it the right way.
I don't believe that there is a right way.
Maybe,
I think
maybe,
it's
maybe,
different
maybe
for
not the right
everyone.
way, but I guess in my mind, if someone is like really struggling with boundaries and they don't have that space for themselves, in my mind, it's more and I could be wrong about this, and maybe maybe you're right. Maybe there's a million other ways, and I'm just not looking at it at from the right perspective. I don't know. But in my mind, like if someone is stuck in a situation like that, then the highest priority is just like teaching those boundaries to that person and just kind of like going through those routines, like almost like they're a soldier, and kind of like going through that to build up their strength so that there's enough room to start working on everything else.
Yeah. So it's like it actually what like when I look at it now, I kind of see that those boundaries we've been working on the whole time side by side with the other things that we've been working on, you know? So it's like, yes, like now those boundaries have gotten to a place where, you know, they're much healthier than they were at the beginning, but it was like we did have to kind of dig into that right away. And yeah, so like I'm capable of adapting. I'm capable of adapting. You know, I consider myself not just a relational trauma coach, but also an intuitive coach. You know, so like I can like, you know, look at a situation and be like, okay, yeah, I have this program and this is how we do it, but I need to kind of, you know, tweak this a little bit for you. And what you're dealing with right now. So I guess the original question that I came in with is that perhaps yes, that this feeling of I only want to work with single people is a protector, you know, coming up to say, just do this. That's going to make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Because I'm just not seeing the evidence that you're not capable. Like, as far as
I know I'm capable. I know I'm capable, but it's more like it's not about not being capable. It's more about like, where is my energy best spent? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More like that.
So maybe so I'd ask the question: where do you feel? Do you feel like that has changed since we started talking, or do you still kind of have the same perception of where the energy is best spent?
Yes and no. Okay. So like, yes, I do feel like my perception has changed a little bit because, you know, I mean, coming from the background that I come from, being, you know, an artist as well, we tend to be very difficult, you know, very hard on ourselves. And so I think that there is probably that part, that perfectionistic, you know, protector that comes up and says that if it was this way, it would be easier and it would be perfect. You know, then you would have this perfect everything that you strive for. And
can I ask you?
Yes, go ahead.
A question about that?
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind, like I don't know I don't know how many clients you have. I don't know how easy it is for you to get clients. And I'm not going to ask about questions like that. But if you're able to get a bunch of clients in kind of like this segment that is 100% ideal for you, I don't see much reason for you to kind of go much out there, just because I think there are other people who have the capabilities to help these other clients in ways that, like, maybe you just don't enjoy it as much. And
that's what I was getting at. But I do, like, now, you know, like now that I see things coming together, I do enjoy, like it is really, you know, like I am enjoying it. But yeah, it really does depend on how easy it is for me to get clients. And that is becoming easier. Like I am starting to pick up some momentum. And so I guess that's why this question has been coming about, because now that like I'm starting to, you know, get into this kind of momentum where like things are picking up more naturally, and I'm not like having to spend all my time, searching for clients.
Yeah.
That's why these questions are coming up. And so, like I said, I think that basically where I'm at right now, differently from when we started this conversation, is I'm not completely 100% against working with people, who are married or in relationship or whatever, but that I do think, that maybe like having like one or two,
Yeah,
as opposed to like, in terms of like how many I have, that it's like, so that I could focus more energy there. You know what I mean? Because if all of my clients are like that, then my energy is going to be, like running thin, I think. If I can spend, like a little bit of, most of my energy working with people who I don't have to come up against that wall with, then, I think it would allow me to be more effective for the people who I do run up against that wall with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I'm hearing from you is I guess the metaphor I'd kind of use is there's a new workout you want to do at the gym, and these muscles you haven't like really strengthened yet, so you want to do just a little bit of it every day so that you're not like overdoing it and end up like focusing too much on that part. So you could,
yeah, because I don't consider myself a relationship coach. I'm a trauma coach. I work with people who have relationship trauma, who have relational trauma, but I'm not a relationship coach, so that's I guess where this is all like. I felt like I've been having to work a muscle that is maybe more challenging for me than I would like, or takes more energy than I would like. So like allowing that in bits, because I want to evolve, I want to grow. And if these people feel like they really want to work with me and that I'm the person that they want to help, then that I want to do that. I want to give them that, but I also want to be able to be most effective. So there needs to be a balance.
Yeah. Makes sense. Cool. So we're kind of coming up on an hour. Like, we're not really rushed or anything. Do you have, how do you feel resolved on this?
I do. I do feel resolved on this. Yeah, okay. I feel resolved, and it definitely, I mean, I have talked about it with my therapist as well, but it does really, really help to talk to another coach about it, because, being a therapist and being a coach are not the same thing. The dynamic is a lot different. And so, she doesn't really understand it the way that you do. And especially since we both deal with attachment, I think it really helps for sure.
Cool. I'm really glad. This was a great conversation, and
it was.
Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, have a good day. We'll talk
you too.
later.
Bye.
Bye.